Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with, I'm going to put the yellow here, I'm going to put the blue here, and I'm going to put the red there, just to show you the basic primary colours themselves. So we take a small amount of the lemon yellow, you can see. I'm going to put that in here. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about whether or not I stay within the lines too easily. Now, the thing about doing the colour chart, it's an excellent way to improve your general painting skills, but if you're going to do it, you must clean the brush well in between each colour. Otherwise, if you do out a good colour chart, it's a terrific reference going forward in terms of being able to go and recognise the basic primary, secondary, tertiary colours and also the complementary colours. And it's a good guide to have. Now, you can buy a commercial one, but at the same time, I think it's well worth your time actually doing it one yourselves and physically painting it, because we all know practice is always superior to theory if you can place it. And then, of course, dry out the brush really well so that if you're not diluting the colour too much. We're now going to move to the cobalt blue, and I'm going to place that here. And again, I'm going to simply wash the brush, and I'm going to then go to the idea of the dark red, the permanent rose on the right hand side, and install that just there. As you can see, it's a nice deep tone. They as such are your primary colours. Now, if we take the two on the right, the yellow and the red, those two might, when they're mixed, create orange, and that's a secondary colour. So we'll take a small amount of yellow, taking the lighter colour first, and a small amount of red. Nice little intense touch of orange. Some people like to mix the paints with a palette knife. Some people like to use a brush. I like to use a brush. I like the immediacy and the sort of sense of flexibility that the brush gives me in the physical mixing process of it. Let me just put that here. Just secondary colour orange. You can see it's nice and vibrant. We'll move across to the, we'll move down rather, and we'll work with the idea of the blue and the red, and we're going to mix up a violet. So, start with a small amount of blue and a small amount of red. Nice violet, and you can see that the combination of the cobalt blue and the permanent rose gives a nice violet. Mix a little bit more. Nice deep violet. And these are arranged in such a fashion that you can see that the complementary colour of yellow is violet, the complementary colour of blue is orange, and as I said earlier, the complementary colour of red will be green. What I would always advocate is, you hear me saying a lot, is take your time, learn. Give yourself the opportunity to learn what it is you're about with your paints. Take your time to practice and to trial and error them, because it is hugely important. Put in our green here. And that's our green. Okay? So now we have the idea of primary and secondary colours. Now what I want to do is I want to expand on that, and I want to talk to you about, I mentioned already the idea of colours having the sense of light, medium and dark, and even more than that you have light, light, medium, 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 dark and dark of the various different colours. We're going to touch on that to some degree here, so we're going to start with the idea of 3 colours. I'm going to explain to you and show you how you can create 12 out of that, and then I'm going to talk to you about some of the intermixes that can happen to create other colours that we physically don't have on the palette outside of the ones on the chart. So once again, we'll start with the yellow, a little bit of yellow in here. So nice medium yellow there. From there, I'm going to take my dark red once more, and I'm going to place that here. That's my dark red. And then over on the left hand side, we'll work with the idea of the blue, cobalt blue. Like that there. Now, what I'm saying is that if we take a small amount of the permanent rose with yellow, we'll create orange. A little bit more, we'll create a sort of cadmium red, and then down here, sort of cadmium red deep. Just generally around that. You can go, like for example, we could go with a light orange, a medium orange, and then a light red. There's so many divisions that you can take as many or as few as you wish. The theory is that while I might take an orange and a medium red and a dark red here, that if I were to subdivide these enough, I could do so many subdivisions that I could have a complete circle with no definitive definition between each of the colours. They'd all just merge seamlessly into one another, and that is perfectly possible to do so if you've got a very acute eye, you're very practiced, and you're willing to spend the time doing it. So we'll start with the orange again. So here we have the yellow with a small amount of red. Have our orange with that there. Nice rich orange, you can see. From there, I'm going to add a touch more red. Very gently. When you're mixing colour, mix small amounts of colour and mix small, gentle amounts of colour. If you go in too gung-ho with your colours, you can end up, particularly if you didn't get the right colour, with just a big pile of mud that's no good to you, and you have to scrape it all away and start all over again. Small amounts of colour and test them as you go. It's the most effective and appropriate way. You have this here. That's like a vermilion. So it's like a very light orangey red. So that's basically a scarlet lake. And then we go with a little bit more red once more into the same mixture, and that gives me a cadmium red. Okay, so you can see the difference, the yellow, the orange, the scarlet lake, and then the cadmium red before we get to that. Now we could split these further. For example, we could go with a darker orange, we could go with a medium red, we could go with the likes of a cadmium red deep, splitting between those. And now we carry on. We go over to the left hand side and we work with the greens, and what I'm looking for here is a small amount of blue with the yellow for light green, a little bit more blue for medium green, and a little bit more blue for dark green. So we have some green already mixed. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow into that, and I'm going to create a nice lively green, and that's going to go here. That's that lively green there. And I'm going to add a little bit more blue to that. The cobalt with the yellow gives nice, vibrant, slightly zingy greens. Just physically mix a little bit more to have. We put this medium green in here. I'm going a bit too dark too quickly. We'll soften that by adding a little bit more yellow. I want to split between a little bit more again. I'll physically mix it here just to soften it down. That's better. And that gives me my medium green. And then a little bit more blue for a darker green. And that'll go in there. As you can see. Now we're going to go down and we're going to mix the blues and reds, and we're going to come up with a secondary dark blue, which is going to be ultramarine blue. Then we're going to go with a blue violet, or a red violet, a blue violet, and then a red violet there. So we'll take our ultramarine blue. So we have the cobalt once more, and to that we add only a small amount of red. Too much red makes it violet, and that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a dark blue, and you can see I've put a little too much red into that, so I'm going to pull it back by adding more blue. Ultramarine is a red biased blue, which means it airs more on the red side than, let's say, the cobalt, which is what's called the yellow biased blue. It airs more on the yellow side of the colour spectrum. Put that in there. And it's a nice, intense, warm blue. Then we'll add a little bit more red to that for a blue violet. And then we'll add a little bit more red for a red violet. You can see the colours there. So now, as a consequence of the initial 3 colours, the yellow, the blue and the red, we now have 12. As I said, you can subdivide these down. We could split each and every one of these into slightly lesser tones of what we see. So for example, as I said already, we could have a darker orange or a slightly darker red. We could have a darker green yet again, or a slightly darker navy blue by comparison to the violet. So each of these can be subdivided, and it's that you're trying to get to grips with.